Welcome to Better Together, the podcast where we go behind the scenes on what truly goes on at xrecruiter. I'm Emmalene, and in this series, I'll be sitting down with the people that make everything happen, from leadership to the people behind the scenes helping our partners succeed every day. We'll talk about how we help recruiters build their own business, what really goes on in supporting our partners, and the stories behind the people doing the work. Today we welcome Matt Cossens, our Chief Growth Officer. Matt, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
I guess to get started, what I want to know from you most importantly is, what does Better Together mean to you?
Ooh, strong place to start.
Right?
Better Together, wow. There's so many layers, I think, when I think of Better Together. But if I look at it in its most simplistic form, it is about just being better as humans together. So I look at the community of xrecruiter, how we engage with our partners, how we engage together as a team. And we are really better together. Like, the collective wisdom of the group of the 75 partners is where we win. So it's probably where I'd start in terms of better together. But I always think of that saying, what is it? A rising tide raises all boats. And I think it's so evident in the journey we've had here at xrecruiter, starting with our first 10 partners to where we are today. You can just see how everyone helps each other out. So whether that's people getting people into their office to give them a leg up to start, whether it's people in Melbourne coming into our office and learning and growing together, that mantra, I think it's more than a couple of words. And ultimately, I hope it's a legacy we leave on the industry, which is better together. So it's not just about those who are in xrecruiter and those who aren't, but how are we better together as an industry?
And for people who aren't a part of xrecruiter yet, we talk about it every day, right? It's something that really drives us. So it's really cool to hear someone that's, right at the forefront of the evolution of xrecruiter, what it actually means to you. So that's really cool. Matt, for people who don't know you yet, I'm really keen for you to give context around why you're here and what your background is that you've come from before xrecruiter. Yep. Can you give us a little snippet of what that was?
Of course. And I mean, I hate talking about myself, and saying I've now got 2 decades in recruitment because it makes me feel like a dinosaur. I am not. But I have had 2 decades in recruitment. So I started my career in Greythorn, which was an IT recruitment firm. Very much Wolf of Wall Street day one, 40 salespeople on the floor in Melbourne alone, big international business. Sink or swim. Spent my first 5 years there and learnt from some amazing people. I mean, they had some absolute killers back then. So I was really blessed to work alongside some $1 million billers. By year 3, I was kind of that myself, which was good. And that's kind of been a big part of my journey. I left there and went to what was diversity, part of Chandler McLeod. That wasn't for me. Big agency, $1 billion business, nothing wrong with it, but wasn't the fit for me. Then most people know my journey at Orec. So I spent 10 years at Orec. Built that from scratch in Melbourne. We exited that business to Randstad over, it was a 10-year journey to go from 100 temps to 500 or 600, very, very strong business, 35, 40 sales recruiters nationally, exited that to Randstad, then went to Technology People and there was a plan to try and do that again. That wasn't successful. We didn't get that to an exit. And then, of course, joined xrecruiter, and the rest is history.
What a journey. It's interesting because I've been in recruitment 5 years and I've seen the landscape change so much within that time, from COVID to now. What's the biggest thing that's changed for you in that 20 years that you've seen in the industry?
It's really interesting because as much as things change, they kind of stay the same.
Yeah.
So every evolution in the industry has always been like, that's the end of recruitment. So, so I was pre-LinkedIn, which is saying something. I wasn't pre the internet, like some of my colleagues, but as soon as LinkedIn came in, it was like, that's the thing that's going to, so it was probably Seek first. Seek's going to get rid of all the recruiters. It didn't. Then it was LinkedIn's going to get rid of all the recruiters. Now it's AI is going to replace all the recruiters. And as much of those things have changed and made finding people easier and connecting with candidates much easier, a lot of the recruitment basics have stayed the same. So the ability to sell, the ability to influence, psychology of the deal, all of those core sales and relationship skills actually haven't changed. And the difference between a good and a great recruiter is often found there. The tech, I think, is an awesome enabler. And I think that will continue to grow or make things easier for people. But I think it'll be the haves and have-nots. It'll be those who have invested in those human skills that really shine versus those who haven't invested in them, that rely on technology that will get replaced at some stage in the future. But I don't think there's been this radical shift in recruitment, if I'm honest, over the 20 years. It's just some of the technology has made parts of the role easier.
I want to come back to that because I think it's a really relevant topic right now, especially with AI, especially with how much tech is evolving. I think that's really interesting. But tell me about you. So Chief Growth Officer at xrecruiter, what does that actually mean? What are you actually doing for xrecruiter and for our partner network?
Yeah, cool. So fancy title. But what it really means is taking people good to great. So there's a couple of elements to my role. So the first part is partner success. So Taryn and the partner, who's our head of partner success and that team, reports into myself, and they are really responsible for taking people through their xrecruiter journey. So that's everything from pre-onboarding to their first 100 days, first year, 3 years, 5 years, and whatever their journey looks like within xrecruiter. But the partner success function is really looking at, well, what does success look like on your terms? Now, how do we build everything around that to get you there in the quickest, efficient, and most effective way possible? So that's that good to kind of great journey. And that could be someone who wants to be a solopreneur, maximize their time with their family, have a beautiful lifestyle, work as little as possible, earn as much as they can. Or it could be someone trying to scale a multinational business, a H People, a Harwell, some of those examples we have. So the first part of the role is really focused on essentially, our partner's been amazing, which is the fun part I like. The second part of my role is in growth. So that is everything from learning development, which is the link back into partner success. So what is the training that underpins that journey from day one to year 5 and beyond? But then it's also the growth of, well, what does growth look like between our partners? So how do we cross-sell, and where people want to cross-sell, how do we build partnerships and alliances within xrecruiter? It's also bids and tenders. So how do we go to market for our partners, or how do we go to market as xrecruiter and bring growth opportunities in? So that's seen us win government panels, some ASX listed work, and bring that in and feed it into our partner. And that growth part of the role is really the part I'm excited about. I'm still a salesman at heart. I can't change that. But I love that I get to firstly work with our partners, see their lives change, and then secondly look at how do we make that easier by going to market as xrecruiter. So they're probably the two core functions of my role.
And that's huge, right? But looking at your background, I mean, you're $1 million biller in your own right. And then you've got this really incredible part to you, which is leadership, it's growth coaching, it's working with people to help develop. Was there one point in your career where you can pinpoint, I'm a really high performer, I now want to help other people get better and perform themselves in their own right?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I want to say this in the least egotistical way possible. So I've always wanted to be the star player and the coach. Always. So I grew up in elite sport. I was generally the best player in the best team in the league, particularly in basketball. I didn't grow enough to be an NBA player, but I always wanted to be the star, the Michael Jordan, but also be like the captain or the coach of the team. So I think that's always been with me since I was young. And of course, there's been plenty of pursuits I've taken where I couldn't be those two things. But I think I got lucky in recruitment and put the reps in recruitment to be a star performer early, but I always knew I wanted to lead people to greatness. So for me, being $1 million biller, it's an awesome title. But once you get there, you realize it's a bit shallow, truth be told. And I'm like, well, how do I make other people $1 million billers? And at Orec, I'd like to think we're almost $1 million biller factory by the time I left. And certainly people who came, they came because they wanted to go from 500K to 750 to $1 million. And that's what really drew me to xrecruiter, was this ability to, I know I can coach people there. I know what that good to great journey looks like. And it's always been a part of my DNA, is I want to see other people. I never saw myself as that lone wolf, just do a number. And life could be beautiful that way, but I've always wanted to kind of leave a legacy and leave a mark. So I don't think there was a point in my career where I caught that. I think it's always been there as a young child. But I think when I noticed it early in my career was probably year 2 at Greythorn. They were like, Matt, we want you to lead. You're a natural leader. We want you to come and do that. And I was like, no, I need to be great first, because I don't want to be a leader who hasn't walked the walk. I want to be that tour guide leader who's been there, done that, knows the best coffee shop. Come with me, I'll jump in the trenches, let's win together. Versus, I don't quite know how to get you there, but I think I know the answer.
Yeah. And I think if I was to look at that from an xrecruiter lens, that's the really incredible thing about the team that's, helping our partners, right? Is that, it's through learned experience, it's through actual credibility rather than just telling someone how to do something, which is totally different fields. Can you pick the $1 million billers when they come in, or is that a learned developing over time?
Great questions. So I think there are some natural people you meet through your career where you're like, they've got the X factor, they've got it. You know, so there has been people I've met over my career where I've been like, I need to hire that person. I know they've either got the raw potential and they can get there, or they walk in and you can just tell. But I do think that you can get everyone there if they're willing to put in the sacrifice, right? And what I mean by that is if someone's willing to do the learning, willing to be coachable, and a lot of people aren't, or they say they are, but the reality is they're not. But if you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to be coachable, I think you can get nearly anyone there. But the reality is what I've seen is most people who don't make it that far, they get to say 500K and life is comfortable, right? Maybe they're earning 150, 160, life is good, and they're doing their 38, 40 hours a week. And then they go, well, I don't want to put in that commitment. I don't want to do that extra 10 hours or that extra 20 hours, because there's that gap between putting in that work. You've got to put it in for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months before you start to see some of those things paying off. And they go, it's too hard. And they pull back and go, I'm okay at 160. Like the scariest place actually, I think, for a recruiter is where they get complacent or they get comfortable. Not everyone has that, like, I want more, I want more, I want more.
Sure. So it's the ambition behind it is what you're saying is really important. So the difference between ambition and execution, what do you see between that line?
Yeah,
that makes people actually deliver?
Yeah, a lot. And I mean, we could spend the whole podcast talking about that, but I obviously coach people around kind of goal setting across their entire life, not just in recruitment. And where I think people fall down from a goals perspective, I think there's four things. So one is they don't have the habits that support those goals. So they say, I want to be $1 million biller, awesome. And they might have a couple of other goals in that space. But then it's like, well, what are your habits that you're going to change to get there? I don't know, right? So they're already starting at a false start because they haven't identified those habits. But for most people, where I think things fall down, where that ambition execution thing falls down, is around identity, reason, and commitment. So what I mean by that is they don't have a clear identity on who they are as a recruiter or who they are in, whether it's in fitness or another area of their life. So when things get hard, there's nothing to kind of fall back on, right? Most people who get to $1 million biller status, like as soon as they hit there, they never go back because it becomes an identity, right? Like, I am $1 million biller. For those who are going on that journey, they don't actually believe that identity in the first place. So I think identity is one. Second one is a compelling reason, right? When you talk to a lot of recruiters, everyone says, I want to be $1 million biller. Why? They don't actually have an answer. It'd be nice to do. Like, it's a number that I aspire to. You need a real compelling reason, whether that's family, whether that's, whatever the driver is, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, you need to have a really strong reason. And then who are you really committed to? And most people don't have accountability or commitment to anyone, or they choose the wrong commitment person, whether that's, a family person, their partner. Often they're the worst, people from a commitment point of view, depending who you've married and how hard they are on you as a person.
Okay. That's huge. So really it's all about mindset coming in, right? And building the right foundations and then working off the back of that.
Yeah. Everything comes back to identity. Like, I'm a huge believer in identity drives behavior.
So in terms of the difference between xrecruiter and going out completely solo, what are your thoughts on that around the difference that you see in people doing it?
The first one is the support and the knowledge in the room. I think you touched on this earlier. If I look at the team we've assembled at xrecruiter, like, I'm so proud of the business we've built. So, people like yourself, people like Ed, people like Blake, Taryn, in every division, we've got absolute killers. Jenny Lee, Rav, like our team, the level of credibility, the level of success they've had, there would be very few, or I couldn't even think of a recruitment leadership team that would have that level of experience and available to them. So obviously I'm biased to xrecruiter. That's why I'm here. Could you do it on your own? Of course you could. And if you're going to be successful, right, like genuinely, if you're a great recruiter, could you be successful on your own? Yes. But the question is how successful and how quickly, right? And what do you do when poo hits the fan? Could you find a coach externally? Sure. Could you find some mentors? Sure. But do you have a system or an ecosystem that every day wakes up thinking about you, right? So if I think of our 75 partners and I think of our partner success team, every day we have a huddle around where are we at? How are people performing? What can we do with partner X? What can we do with partner Y? Hey, we're seeing this trend over here where people are being successful. How do we deploy that here? We see these people are struggling. How do we build a tool or a support system to help them there? Do we just jump in the trenches alongside them and make some phone calls? They're all the advantages you have in being in xrecruiter, just from an xrecruiter team point of view. But then you've got the ecosystem to to leverage on. And I think, recruitment when I started, it was like, don't talk to your competitors, they're the devil. These days, I think there's a real openness for people to support people. And certainly in xrecruiter, we've proven that's true. It might not be true in the broader market, but it's certainly true in xrecruiter. So I think the advantage is how quickly you can be successful. I think your ceiling is higher in xrecruiter because you've got people who have probably driven something that you want to drive before, or they've got to a level of success that you aspire to. So you're going to avoid some of those pitfalls. But I do think a genuine successful person, whether it's on their own or through xrecruiter, will still be successful, but it's just to how quickly and to what level can they drive that success.
I really like that. And going back to what you kind of said before around tech and AI, especially in a period like this, you want to be working with people that are staying ahead of the curve and understand the market from a whole holistic kind of point of view. So I think that's an added benefit and kind of sums up what you just said there. But going back to what you did say, because I think that's important to focus on at the moment, what's one piece of advice you might give to a recruiter starting an agency right now that would encompass tech and AI and all of the platforms that are available to use these days?
I'm going to give this a couple of answers. So the first thing I'd say is be careful about the noise. There's so much noise around AI. And I see it with our partners as well. I see it in our WhatsApp group. Have you used this tool? Have you used that tool? How are people finding this? And there's a new tool every week, every month. That's an AI tool is not your secret to success. Your secret to success is great client relationships, good sales ability, and the ability to generate pipe, and all those sales and relationship skills is what is actually going to make you a successful recruiter. AI, you need to look at it around how does this enable me? How does it buy my time back to focus on high value tasks? So for anyone starting out, I'd be like, if that AI tool does not give you time back for you to redeploy that into a high value task, which is all relationship and sales driven, it's probably a waste of time at the moment. Now that could change in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time with the right thing coming on the market. But so many people are looking for, what's that get rich quick scheme? What's the AI product that's going to do the job for me? What's the marketing automation that guarantees I'm going to pick up pipeline? There is none. There's tools that will aid with that. There's tools that will help with that, and you should have them in place again to get that time back. But so many people are looking for, it's a bit like being in the gym. Everyone wants to get skinny. Everyone wants to lose weight. Everyone's looking for the next Ozempic, right? How can I get the answer without putting in the work? AI is a little bit the same, right? But there is no answer that's going to just that's going to solve that for you. So for people starting out, focus on your craft, focus on your sales skills, get a great mentor. With the AI stuff, keep an eye on it, know the tools that work, and there are some tools that are really useful for parts of the job, but don't think it's your secret pill to success, because it's yet. And if it is, recruiters probably don't exist, and I'm not convinced that's ever going to happen.
My last question for you, Matt. The best agency founded. Is there anything, one particular thing that is setting them apart that you're seeing right now on the ground with our partner network?
Coming back to mindset and identity, I think the best performers are very clear in who they are. Doesn't mean they don't have imposter syndrome, doesn't mean they don't have a noise in their head that they have to deal with, but I think they're very clear on who they are and what they're building. So I talk to people I coach around having goals in 4K clarity, right? Ultra HD, where you're heading, why you're heading, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, like you're locked in and you've got someone helping you take you on that journey, versus I want to build a great business, or I want to be an awesome solopreneur. Well, what does that mean, right? If you've got grainy goals, or vague goals, you have vague results, versus extreme clarity. I think that's kind of part one. Part two is most of them have a level of work ethic and a level of intensity that most people would find sick. So if I look at the best people in xrecruiter and I look at our top, say, 10 partners, all of them would be doing, and I talk about this a lot, talent, time, intensity. All of them would be investing in their talent day in, day out, week in, week out, great coach, reading books, learning, mastering their craft, always. From a time point of view, like 50 hours is probably a light week for most of them. Like they're probably doing 60 and above, and people hate me saying that. But like that, if you want to be excellent, you have to do excellent things. You have to put in the work, to what you do. And the third part is they have a level of intensity in that time. So there's no point in putting 50 or 60 hours in a week if you're sitting around doom scrolling, getting sucked into conversations, not focusing on what you need to do. They have a huge level of intensity. I mean, I'm blessed that I get to coach all of our high performing partners here at xrecruiter, and they would all share, those three things in common to a really, really high level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible. And you can see it in the numbers. The outcomes are far above those who are mediocre in their craft, and you can definitely tell the difference.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's about knowing what massive action looks like. And I share this in our 100K in 100 days for new partners kind of coming in. Like we go through a mindset exercise and say, well, what does massive action look like for you? And for most people, it might be like 30 phone calls a week. Right, 30 connected BD calls a week. And there's one person, and I won't say who they are, but there's one of our highest performers in xrecruiter. His first month in xrecruiter, he had over 100 client meetings. Right, so I share that with people because I go, if you think 30 client calls is massive action, here's someone in our top 3. They did 100 client meetings in their first month. And they actually average somewhere between 70 and 80 meetings a month. Right? So you can imagine the number of calls they need to get that done, but that's massive action. And I think that's the divide between top of the food chain, top 1% of recruiters in the country versus, an average recruiter. And it's okay to be in that average mark, but it's about understanding the difference between the two. And usually when people go, oh my gosh, that's actually possible. Yes, it is. Cool. Let's build the systems and the processes and tools to get there. But that's the part where it comes back to sacrifice.
100%. And I think it sounds like there's a lot that goes into it, right? But if you build the right structure and the right tools from the get-go, it doesn't actually appear to be that hard. It's more so just around the execution, right?
100%. Yeah. Systems and processes always win. So I learned from Jack Daly a long time ago. So Jack Daly is a sales coach. He's built and scaled multiple businesses. I met him in Australia many, many moons ago. He's written a book called Hyper Sales Growth, and it's all about systems and structure. That's one of the things I've been blessed with at xrecruiter is to come in and go, well, what are the systems and structures we build, and how do I leverage and air to Taryn and our amazing team to go, what is the quickest pathway from good to great? And what underpins excellence, and the playbook is where you win.
Matt, this has been such an insightful conversation. I see firsthand how you impact our partners every day, and I can say personally it's made a massive impact on our network. So I think that recruiters in the wider network will have a really good takeaway from this conversation. So thank you, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future with xrecruiter.
Beautiful. Thanks for your time.